Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to yet another insightful session of the Glass Academy webinars in association with Ethos Empowers. We're thrilled to have you all here today as we continue to explore the ever-evolving intersections of architecture, materials, sustainability, and innovation. Today's session titled Shaping Sustainable Futures, Innovations in Glass, Form and Technology dives into how form, technology, and material intelligence, particularly glass, can shape sustainable future forward spaces. As we push boundaries in computational design and material science, the role of glass is no longer limited to transparency or aesthetics. It's an active design agent that responds to climate, enhances user experience, and supports sustainable goals. Joining us today is someone who exemplifies the spirit of innovation and sustainability, Ar.Hiloni S, founder and lead architect of HSC Designs. HSC Designs is a young, award-winning, multidisciplinary firm based in Ahmedabad, led by architect Hiloni. At the core of Hiloni's design philosophy is a deep commitment to integrating clients' aspirations with contextual challenges, climatic responsiveness, and community needs, resulting in unconventional yet meaningful solutions. Each of her projects is crafted to offer a rich experiential quality, making spaces more intuitive, functional, and enjoyable for the end user. Her design process is rooted in extensive research, carefully studying user patterns, spatial functions, and interactions to inform innovative systems and solutions. Continuously pushing the boundaries of materiality and technology, Hiloni brings a future-forward approach to architecture. She is also a passionate advocate for sustainability, championing practices such as material reuse and zero-waste construction to promote responsible, impact-driven design. So welcome, Architect Hiloni. We're absolutely delighted to have you here with us today. So let's
Hi.
jump right into the design conversation.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
I'm
It's
good.
great
Thank you so
being here
much.
today.
Thank you for accepting our invite. I'm sure this edition is going to add immense value to the youngsters, especially the young graduates who are walking out soon this year. So we've
Definitely.
already brushed upon the core philosophy of HSC, but we would like to know it from your own words. Can you walk us through the core philosophy of HSC designs and what makes the design process very unique?
So at the core of our practice, there are three things that we essentially follow through in every project, which is context-specific design, user functionality-based design, where we give our most importance to our client's function, and also climate responsive design. So using materials which are more responsive to the climate conditions and using technology to make sure that we give optimum solutions to our client. So I think what we kind of focus on is to find the exact design solution for, we look at it as a puzzle where we have to find the exact design solution. That's a core of how the practice is built on, rather than any trends or any isms that we follow.
Absolutely. Very well said. And we also observe that at HSC Designs in your projects, you talk a lot about having that experiential value. So can you please elaborate on what this means to you as a designer and how do you translate this into a form?
So experiential value essentially is basically how your user is experiencing the space or using the space. And then that is one of the largest parameters that we work with in any design is how our end user is going to use the space and how do we make it seamless for them, comfortable for them, and also like a new experience for them, which they haven't sort of experienced before. And how do we give them something which is of utmost importance in their life, and how do we enhance those um, characteristics in their life.
Absolutely. So it also depends on client to client, right? Like the expectations of a client is different for every residence because it's so personalized and customized to a level that every gender or age group should be able to live together in that house. That's something that we all strive to achieve. And
Yes.
also moving on, you also often use computational design methods in your practice. So how has this impacted your ability to design responsive architecture that we're trying to talk about today?
So we do use lot of computational tools to optimize everything right from furniture to architecture. So right from ranging from climatic responsive architecture to using that in furniture to minimize waste and to reuse all of the waste, we sort of use computational tools and all of these processes. So I think it's a very essential, important, and also kind of helpful tool to make sure that we don't generate a lot of waste. We don't kind of make spaces which are not climatically aligned. And I think yeah, so that's how we use a lot of these computational tools.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of advancement in such tools also if we mention about how do we stimulate and test how the light enters a particular space or
Yeah,
how people move so that the patterns are already like in a loop where our design comes into play to kind of fit it like a puzzle, like you rightly mentioned
yeah,
initially. That's I think that's a power tool that all the designers are using these days
yes,
to so the
definitely,
precision
definitely.
is hit on the point.
Yeah, yeah.
So also coming to the another important aspect today is about the user behavior and the pattern, like what they do in the morning, evening, night, how their lifestyle is. So can you share an example through your projects or in general where the user behavior or usage patterns significantly influence the final built form, planning or anything that you miss?
So, if I give an example, a recent residence that we have designed, so we're calling the House of Dynamic Sunlight. We have designed the whole residence around, you know how Indian families are multi-generational. They all sort of, the dining area is usually the space where everyone comes together, chit chats about their day. So we wanted to design a space where the dining area becomes sort of the central fulcrum of their whole house. Because again, it was to parents and kids, older kids, teenagers and older. So we wanted to make sure that all of them have their individual spaces, but also this becomes like an essential space where even it's sort of the dining room converts into this double height foyer, which wherein all of the rooms can kind of come out and look into it. So, and also that is cascaded by this large facade, which brings the west light in, which brings this beautiful north light in. And we've also designed that whole facade with computational tools in a way that the angles are such that they don't get sun glare throughout the day. Ahmedabad's a super hot space, like it's extremely hot, extremely harsh sun. So we wanted to make sure that they are able to use this space throughout the day, get this beautiful natural light throughout the day, get nice views throughout the day, but also not a lot of heat or sun glare wherein the air conditioning capacity of that whole space goes just exponentially high. So in fact, in that space, we have used air conditioning, which you would essentially use for like a very small room with not a double height volume. So even though it's a double height volume, we've not had to use a lot of very high voltage AC because we've designed it such that there is not constant sun glare into it, along with obviously using film glass, etc. So even using the technology of glass in a way to make sure that it doesn't sort of um, encroach on the space.
Absolutely, absolutely. That really makes a lot of sense because that's the space that family gathers the majority of the time. In the West and in the North, like you mentioned, is like a subtle sunset time or like in
Yeah,
the mid-noon, it's going to
yeah.
be like space at that. I can just imagine that. So talking about materials, today's discussion also focuses on glass. So what role does glass play in your projects, just beyond aesthetics? How do you experiment with glass in your projects?
I think glass is one of the most important architectural elements because, I mean, it's one of the only elements which sort of brings in a lot of light, which connects you to the outside, which is super essential. I think having long views, it's been proven that having views towards gardens are very important for health. So um, I think glass is one thing that facilitates that with a lot of ease. And now the technology that we are seeing in glass, Saint Gobain, otherwise as well, where we are seeing this technology where um, it's just incredible how we are able to modulate the kind of light that happens or modulate the kind of spaces that we create. So I think glass is extremely important, not just for aesthetics. I think aesthetics is one essential part of it, but I think the more essential part is the connection that it offers to outside, the sort of uh,
Framing
even the
views and
light that it brings in, and the light
yes.
that it brings in. So, and how much amount of glass to use where, I think that is a very essential part of it.
thoughtfully using it in the right spaces. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
And I think we already brushed upon the question that I'm already going to ask you now, that the Ahmedabad's tropical climate is something that is challenging to address when we design spaces there, especially. So, how do
Yeah.
you balance the use of glass in regard to thermal comfort and glare? You already mentioned that. If you would like to further take this on, you may just go ahead.
Okay, so it is definitely a very harsh climate in terms of heat and humidity. So I think what we do with while we use glass is to make sure that it's used in the right proportions. It's used in the right proportions. It's used with the right amount of shading. It's used with using the technology of glass to the highest content, like where you need to use DGUs, where you need to use laminated glasses. All of that has differentiation. So I think using the technology of glass and but using that in the right proportion, I think that's how we sort of use that. And when we'll go through the presentation, we'll also see that how different functions. So residential spaces need a different aesthetic and different sensibility of glass, whereas commercial healthcare spaces need different sensibility of glass.
I think with this design knowledge of using glass in the right manner also comes in place where you can experiment with shading devices, or the orientation of the building can make a lot of difference to
Yes,
cut the shade and just let the light in. So
100%.
altogether,
I think,
maybe, yeah.
yeah. And I think that is the first thing. Orientation is probably the first thing to start with. It's a good thing that you mentioned that is the first thing to start with. Like, where are we using, on which facades are we using, what sort of glass is also very important.
So that in today's market, we're seeing evolution in materials every single day, if not glass in general with materials. But there are also a lot of innovative glass types and technologies that architects are experimenting with. For example, smart glass, fritted patterns, or like DGUs that you mentioned. So have you experimented intensively with these or any other types of glasses, notably that you can help us understand in your
So we
projects?
do use a lot of DGUs and laminated glasses because again, if you use it, if you are doing multi-storied buildings, residences are still okay, but multi-story buildings need that sort of toughened glass, DGU glasses, even like laminated. I think that laminated is the best option. Smart glass is also something that we just started using. It's a new market, and I think it's a really, really interesting material. Like it has a really interesting technology to it. So smart glass is also something that we are trying to use more in our projects. But definitely, I think DGU and laminated glasses are something that is very, very essential in this heat and also in terms of safety, I think.
Right. Going forward, we always talk about sustainability, and our entire topic today revolves around the term sustainability. So, talking about glass and sustainability, do you see it as a long term sustainable material? And what are some precautions or techniques that you adapt to kind of enhance its sustainable use in long term?
Glass in the right way is, I think, the most sustainable material because glass does not completely degenerate. You can always reuse it in certain ways. Sustainability in terms of using it in built form is again when we use technology along with it, when we determine where exactly do we have to use this glass, and also like we do solar calculations where we use in shading or we use the glass in angles that do not bringing in so much sunlight. So I think that is essentially the way where you can make sure that glass is an extremely sustainable material because it is. Just, I think the reason why sometimes people don't think of it as a sustainable material is when there is, I think, the glass not used in the right way and you just putting glass everywhere. I think that's the only case form where it is not a very sustainable material. But otherwise, I think glass is the most sustainable material there is in built form.
Thank you. I agree. And also talking about the life cycle assessment that glass has, it is almost like 100% recyclable material.
100%
Like
recyclable.
unlike other
Yeah,
materials that go
yeah,
in waste
exactly.
or dump yards,
Yeah.
that's something everybody can think
So
about when
in
you're touching that point of sustainability.
so in one of our projects, we've actually
Please go ahead.
used So this was a regeneration project. We actually used the glass of the whole facade. We broke it down and used it in the false
Right.
ceiling to create this sort of sparkling false ceiling, which kind of gives them. So I mean, it's a very, very versatile and reusable material. So I think it's a great material. Yeah.
And these days, I think even the green rated councils like IGBC, Griha and all also have a section where using a certain kind of glass can improve the rating or a green rating
Yes.
that the building aspires to get,
Yes. So I was
especially
going to
in
touch
the
that
town.
in the presentation that we have. One of the buildings that we're doing is
Absolutely.
IGBC certified, and we are using a special kind of glass from Saint Gobain for
Yeah.
that building. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's something we're also excited to see in your presentation.
Yeah.
So, talking about your projects, I mean, if I may say, they're very iconic, Ar.Hiloni. So, I'm just fascinated with the kind of forms that I might not completely think about, but as a audience or a person who's looking at from outside, they're really iconic. So, I'm
Thank
curious
you.
to know if you have explored any hybrid material systems where glass and any other material like steel, terracotta, or wood work in tandem to enhance both structural strength or in general structure or even the spatial quality, the mix or any material systems that you crack the hybrid systems.
Uh, yes. In our presentation, you'll see that our own office that we are coming up with, our new office, uh, in that we are using a mix of terracotta tiles and glass
Okay.
to sort of make these systems where we try and create spaces where need as less artificial cooling as much possible. So, yeah, because this is such a hot city, you do need certain amount of artificial cooling. But this is to ensure that we get maximum amount of ventilation with the glass openings, but as well as least amount of sun in the spaces to give this amount of glass, to give this amount to lessen the amount of artificial cooling.
True.
So yeah, I think we can touch that upon in the
Sure.
presentation where you're using these two materials, which are very sort of disparate in tandem and very traditional
Yeah,
make of terracotta tiles and this very modern glass systems.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I will not brush more on the next question. It's just a small follow-up question. So how do you view glass as a form-making element? So has it helped you push and experiment your design boundaries in exploring various geometrical explorations of forms?
Yes, 100%. I think we have done a couple of projects where we've not just used irregular shape of glass, but also like faceted shapes of glasses. So I think that is something which wherein glass is extremely versatile. I think you can modulate it to whatever shapes you want, can be cut to whatever shapes are necessary. It can be molded into forms. Um,
Right.
we are seeing a lot of curved glass as well that's happening. So I think it's super versatile. I mean, that's essentially why I think it's being used so much in buildings to kind of, yeah, as a farm making process. And even in interiors, I think, even in interiors, we do use a lot of this glass to kind of make certain sort of angles, certain forms as well.
And also glass furniture is becoming famous these days, like customized
Yes,
glass that have been
100%.
happening.
That's a
Yeah,
huge
market in itself.
market.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because it can be modulated into any forms,
Color, shape,
glass
roughness, everything.
blown,
Yes.
lot of different ways. So glass has been, I think, one of the oldest materials
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
in architectural context, if we see, it's kind of a pretty old material and a very, very, very versatile. And with the technology that's increased in glass today, it's tremendous. Photovoltaic glasses, etc., which are, I think, which have changed the whole landscape of built forms.
It's still being a relevant material apart from the thousands of years of evolution
Yeah,
in our still
yeah,
stays.
yeah.
So sustainability is also deeply embedded in your practice as we speak. So how do you bring zero waste thinking into design and execution phases overall with respect to your design process, not only glass, but in general?
So, like I said, in terms of using computational tools, we use them in a way that we make sure that whatever we are building, it is just so we use the least amount of resources possible. So if I give an example, we are currently making this healthcare building where we have a lot of sinuous forms. Now, to make those sinuous forms, the scaffolding that is required because they are not atypical, they're different all the way through. They are very singular. So, to make those, we would essentially need molds, separate molds for each one of them. Instead, we have designed a scaffolding system which can be multiplied through multiple. So, we designed this scaffolding. So, along with doing the actual design, we also make sure that we design systems in a way that there is least amount of waste. Obviously, it helps with like keeping the budget low as well, but also we don't want to put out so much waste out there that it's just not possible to recycle it. So we make sure that we use it as to this to its highest extent as possible and make sure we design systems where you essentially have as less waste as possible.
Absolutely. And also, I've brought this up in my past webinars with few of the speakers where they mentioned they make these sustainable souvenirs for their clients. Any scrap or the construction waste that
Uh,
falls away on the side, they
yes,
make it into as simple as a lamp or a coffee desk or something so that it's
yes,
not
yes,
getting
yes.
dumped into
Yeah, that is
the
essentially that is I think what all of us do. We kind of try to make it
yeah,
as much into furniture as possible
as possible.
because
Yeah.
yeah, architectural projects are so
Construction
massive.
waste
There
is a
is
huge problem that
it's
we're
a huge
facing,
problem.
the
So our
byproducts of
furniture
our design.
so we
Yeah,
also have a furniture vertical which does exactly this. So it's all on this. We're reusing all construction waste into and
absolutely.
making this large, massive products.
Art pieces or landscape or
Yes.
something that's more functional or aesthetic for the client. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's great. That's great. So talking about clients, architecture is not just only about designing. There are a lot of
Yeah.
stakeholders involved on our regular basis conversations like clients or collaborators, or it can be anybody in the market, off market, whoever we're trying to take us as part of our design journey. So as an architect, how do you involve them in your sustainable design journey? Because that education is really important when we pitch
Yeah.
material or a cost efficient thing that reads in the long run and looks expensive now. So how do you make those choices and convince them
Um,
that this is going to be a compounding good interest in the future, if not?
I think clients now do have the sensibility of that. Most of the clients, I think I would say 70-80% of clients have the sensibility of using, everybody wants to use solar
Yeah,
power in their projects. Everybody wants to do water harvesting. I think that is one thing that is very, very nice. And I think that's seeped through all the layers of the society. Um, in terms of also smaller scale interventions like designing these tech we also kind of show them how with the numbers that right now they're putting a little more into the tech, but then that tech eliminates all of the extra waste that they be generating, or it eliminates all of the extra budget that they would have to put in throughout the whole project. So with those numbers, I think it's convincing enough for them as well. Contractors is one thing that that education still sort of needs to seep in through all the way, where they do have a lot of resistance because it's something new that they need to learn, something
yeah,
that they need to learn from zero. But I think a little bit of push and a little bit of like kind of trying to convince them sort of helps, and they at the end of the day, they do get on board with it. But yeah, I think that sort of will take a little bit of time for them to also understand that this will help them in the future as well. But I think so certain projects at the start, we've seen them super hesitant, but as time goes, they see that this is so much
yeah.
such a new
Or
learning for them, and as well as like it sort of enhances their value as well when they go to other clients and show them that this is something that we've done, this is something that you can do in the future. So I think now they get on board with it. Yeah.
that's interesting, definitely. Coming almost to the end of our questions, how do you see the future of architectural form evolving? What's one technological advancement or material you're currently most excited about experimenting with, apart from the ones we spoke about?
Uh, I think all of technology right now is super interesting, especially AI. If AI can bring in good enough optimization tools, I think that would be great because the time that we spend in doing these optimization studies I think if we can make that lesser, we can get more people on board to do these things. We can get more people on board to kind of actually invest their time and their in their projects to go through these whole processes. Materiality, I think we are right now at the threshold where people are exploring materials to the largest extent to make sure they create new materials which are more sustainable, to create like hempcrete, which is I think a super interesting material. If we can bring that into construction, if we can bring those sort of materials into construction, I think the future is going to be great.
It's a great time for AI. Wherever we speak, whatever industry, fashion, design, you name it, it's all
It's
AI
all
we can
there.
do.
It's everywhere. It's
It's
everywhere.
all
And
there.
I think rather than fighting it, it's better to get on board and sort of
Make us,
use it in the right
yeah,
way.
companion. Yes,
Yeah, use it in
absolutely.
the right way. I mean, AI is never going to replace a designer. I think that
Of course.
because it's giving you output of what it's been fed. So it's not going
Right.
to ever replace a designer, but what it can help is to help with the time of the designer, like using it in the right way to use it as an optimization tool, or even we do
To
use it
help
for
us develop
renders
more
as well.
efficient design. Yes.
Exactly, help us develop more efficient design.
So your work beautifully blends with technology and the material innovation we spoke about, and it's also human-centric. So what would be your message to young architects and designers who are watching this, striving to create meaningful and future-forward architecture in today's ever-changing world? Because it keeps changing. If nothing is constant, the trends or like whatever AI we are talking now, it might be something else in the future. So what would be your piece of advice to them who are just
I think
coming
when
up?
it comes to design, there's not like sticking to trends is not the right idea. Try to stick to your own conscience and see what exactly you're good at and what can you bring into the project. Rather than trends, it's better to bring in your own essence of what you are good at to the project. And I think that's the best way to kind of stay relevant as well. You have to be true to yourself. And I think one thing that I've repeatedly understood and also seen in architecture is the only thing that is important in architecture is perseverance. Because it's a very, very long drawn profession. It's not something you start a building today, it takes 6 years to get over. So you have to have that patience and perseverance. Without that, I think it's just not possible to survive in this industry.
Absolutely. Completely agree to that. That was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we love to also walk you, I mean, you walk, I mean, we'll also love you to walk us through some of your projects, something
Yes.
that exemplifies today's theme. And it's over to you. You can share your screen with us.
Okay. I'll just share my screen.
Yes.
Uh, Yeah, so let's start from this. So basically, we are a young architectural practice that is context and research driven. And we truly believe that every project is sort of a lab experiment where we need to get optimum results. And this is actually our furniture line that I was talking about was is made from reused construction waste. And we make this like sculptural experiential pieces from that. So we put in 4 projects which sort of optimize how glass is used, how our spaces are designed according to the use of glass, and how do we make it sustainable and make sure that the whole space is optimized by the use of technology, but also by the use of glass. So this is the first project of my career, and this was like a extension project, a very small 100 square feet extension project that we made on top of a very, very traditional built farm. So because this was a very traditionally built house, we wanted to make sure that it doesn't take away from the essence of the original structure, but also adds on to it. So we've designed this space in a way where we have modulated the angles of all of these facets in the way that there is continuous sunlight throughout the day, but never there is a sun glare in the space. So I'll show you. Yeah, these are the pictures of the day. And the space was meant to be versatile enough for it to be like a lounging space for a young couple. And then it became into a nursery when their family grew. So the if you see the angles of the windows, they are such that even though there is skylights, even though there is light, it is such that there is constant views of the green. There is privacy from the other surrounding houses as well, but also there is continuous angular sunlight throughout the space. And the windows have also been designed in a way that there is ventilation as well, cross ventilation as well throughout the whole space. Moving on to the next project. This is the residence that I was talking about, where we've designed the whole space around their dining gate, that like the dining space, which is their main meeting space. And also, so you can see the whole facade cascading into their central foyer space. If you can see inside, you'll be able to see I'll just go to the interior. Yeah. So this is their dining room where they're getting these beautiful shadows. And this is the space where they sort of get together the most. And around the dining space, there's this large foyer which sort of leads to all of their bedrooms. So along with their dining area, the bedrooms also have these large light avenues where they can constantly get sunlight, but never will you see extreme sun glare. So even if you see in this picture, this is taken in the afternoon. So even if you see in this picture, there is very soft sunlight that's cascading throughout the whole space. And again, the back elevation, because there was south side, that's designed in a way that there is shading throughout the whole space. So all of these facets are modulated in a way that there is shading, and the use of materials like terracotta along with it, along near the glasses, so that there is constant cooling as well throughout the space. And so these are the kind of like these are just basic images of how our sun calculations are done, where wherein we make sure that the spaces which are getting maximum sunlight, they're not the ones which have a lot of glass on it, but the ones which have got shading. Those are the spaces where you get maximum amount of glass. So if you can relate to that image and this image, you'll be able to see how the glass also has a lot of shading happening on it, but also it where you get like nice, soft, natural light throughout the day. Should I move to the next one? Yeah. Okay. So this is the project that we are currently working on. It's um, project which is underway, and it's probably the most, I think, most challenging, but also most fulfilling project that we've done till now. Um, it is a multi-purpose healthcare building. So there is a hematology lab, there's a path lab, which wherein there is a lot of patients who come in with blood cancer, especially a lot of kids. So we wanted to make sure that the building is such that they don't feel like it's that they are going into a hospital, that they're going into this sterile, boring elemental space where they are going to be treated. That was the brief of the client, that they wanted the space to be such that it doesn't become intimidating for these patients, because these are very serious illnesses that they are treating over there. So a big part of it is how do we make these large framed views into the outside. So there is a research study which says that for mental health, for your mental health and for also your physical healing, you need to, at all times, or at least at the place where you spend a lot of your day, you need to have framed views which kind of give you a very long format view. So not just something which is very nearby. So a long format view where you can see at least, I think, 5 meters into the distance. So if you see, the windows are designed in a way where they can they can essentially see out, and the larger windows are in a space where they can kind of see a lot into the exteriors, and the spaces where it's, because it's in the middle of the city, the spaces where there is a lot of built form around it, we've given windows which are looking down. So they are angled to look towards the bottom rather than looking at the building next to it. So these are the internal spaces. So if you see, even during like hot afternoons inside the building, the spaces are extremely cool because we have used glass along in shapes um, which provide enough shading. Secondly, we have given these sort of shading elements to it. And third, we have used it in conjunction with a material like brick, which also has natural insulation properties. So again, I mean, I just wanted to kind of show a quick overview of how we do these climate studies. The curves are designed in a way that they give they are not just curves to kind of just have this aesthetic look, but these curves increase the functional spaces because it's in the middle of the city. It is governed by a lot of city rules where we can't go beyond a certain FSIB, we can't go beyond a certain, overhang, etc. But these curves sort of help us navigate those areas, along with the fact that these curves provide shading to the windows as well. So we never had to do like extremely big chhajjas to make sure that the large volume of windows are shaded. And we have also oriented the spaces inside in a way that there is least amount of radiation happening throughout the day. And and the openings are designed in a way that there is enough cross ventilation happening throughout the whole space. And this is the last project, which is, which is our office, which is coming up, which is under construction. And this space is something where we wanted everything to be at the utmost level. So, sorry, one thing I forgot in this, this is again like the IGBC rules that we talked about. This is an IGBC Gold certified building that we are coming up with. So we are even with it in terms of technology of glass, I think selecting a glass which has that rating, selecting a glass that has that light efficiency, has that shading efficiency. I think those things also play a very important role into making decisions for the project. Yeah, so moving on to our office, we wanted to make sure that it is a space where, one, it sort of encourages creativity. Two, we wanted to make use of every possible reused material that we can use in the space because if we are such big advocates of it, our space should reflect the same thing. So we have used a very, very simple traditional material like terracotta tiles. I mean, essentially terracotta tiles are being used in roofing to as a cooling device. How do we use it in the walls? But how do we use it such that it doesn't become a secondary wall? It's a load-bearing primary wall. So we're coming up with tech to make sure that the terracotta wall stands as a load-bearing primary wall. And how do we use it in conjunction with glass and greens to make sure that there is views throughout the day, but there is also enough cooling throughout the day. So again, the form of the build, the glass, everything has been determined according to our radiation studies, our sun calculation studies, and we've come up with a methodology where there is glass in a very unique form, but it's also such that it's continuously shaded through these terracotta tiles. Yeah, so I think this is the end. I've just put in four projects to give like a gist of what all um, to give you a gist of the extent of the things that we do throughout this and how every project has its own specific requirements and how we make sure that each of these specific requirements are adhered to. Like residences have something different, offices have something different, and as well as healthcare spaces have something different. So I think when we tie all of these ideas in along with these ideas of what materials can we use and how can we use glass in a way that these materials are given 100% justice to as well, I think that's when we can come up with something which is sustainable, but it doesn't have to be such that sustainable doesn't mean that you go back to the rudimentary ways of living in a hut. But how do you use all this technology and new age materials to make something sustainable?
Absolutely. That was a wonderful presentation, Ar.Hiloni. Thank you so much for putting together four case studies, if I may call it, in students' language for them to understand what all thought processes go in designing a space which is future sustainable and lasts forever while we're here. So thank
Yeah.
you once again for this inspirational content that you've given us, and the insights that your project showed are a beautiful amalgamation of art, science, and also sustainability and technology. And we're sure everyone here took away a lot of meaningful ideas, especially around how glass, other materials, and also technology can enhance our built environments. So, on behalf of Glass Academy and Ethos Empowers, thank you once again for joining us and generously sharing your work and expertise with us.
Thank you so much. It was great. I hope the students can take something from it.
Absolutely, I'm sure
And
they
thank
will.
you for
And
inviting me on this. It was a lot of fun.
thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And to our audience, thank you for being here. We hope today's conversation will spark new thoughts in your practice and pedagogy. Stay tuned for our upcoming sessions as we continue to shape conversations around material intelligence, glass, and architecture innovation. See you all in the next webinar. Thank you very much.